I have to apologize. First off, I was supposed to be up here with my client, near and dear to my heart, David Van Dongen, but we were in Hanoi last week, and David came down with something nasty, and he called me yesterday and said he will survive, but he couldn't be here today, so we'll have to do this without him. We're in the midst of a bit of a Copernican management revolution where Copernicus said, the sun rather than the earth was the center of the known universe. And business leaders are now realizing that, in fact, it's the customer, not the brand, not the product or the service that should be at the center of the company. And this is really borne out by research. One study found that 8 in 10 leading companies had customer centricity instilled throughout every department, whereas only 1 in 10 of lagging companies had that. But the point really is just that we know that customer centricity actually means money. It's good business. SkyTeam also realized this. And in 2015, they set customer centricity as kind of one of their central focus areas. And they said, we want to build this brand, we want to build this product around the customer. And they labeled it, they made sure everyone in the organization really knew it. But it's one thing to say that, and it's another thing to do it. And it is really tough given their very difficult business model. See, SkyTeam is an airline alliance. So in fact, it's actually 20 different companies who have all agreed to work together. And when you have 20 companies working together, well, those 20 companies all have different company culture. They all have different kind of business objectives and ways of working. They even have 20 different actual languages and local cultures. It's an enormous group to kind of get working together. And one of their central products is this service called Sky Priority. And Sky Priority is essentially like a priority service for their most high-value customers. So you think of first and business class travelers or platinum and gold loyalty card holders for the various airlines. It's really supposed to be this premium service for the kind of the 20% of customers that are making up the lion's share of their revenues. So what is Sky Priority? If you imagine showing up at the airport, you don't have to be there quite so early because you know when you walk up to that checkout counter, the check-in counter, that you're going to have your own lane that will be much faster. You can watch the whole herd of people standing there queuing, and you can just walk straight up, go to check in for your flight. And then that carries through onto immigration and security, and at several touch points throughout your journey. So from the time you arrive at your airport where you'll be departing to the time you leave your arrival airport and grab your bag, you're prioritized throughout that journey. And this is a huge promise because, in fact, they have to be able to deliver this across 20 different airlines, across 1,000+ airports all around the world. And you have to get this to be really seamless and consistent throughout that journey. And that can be a hell of a challenge, honestly. And they realized this. So they said, we've created this awesome service. People love it. We've put the customer at the center of our company, but we need to see that we're actually delivering that service. And so that set us up with 3 major challenges when we wanted to do research, because we wanted to really bring the consumers in on this journey with us. So first, we wanted solid and reliable insights. Yeah, that's a bit of an absurd thing to say. I hope at least every researcher wants solid and reliable insights. It's a bit of a given. But the reason I say that, and the reason we had to make it explicit, was that this wasn't their first time journey into customer research. They had done mystery shopping before. And as we heard in Samsung and Be My Eyes presentation earlier, mystery shopping can have some very serious limitations. And these guys ran headlong right into that. What they found was that it was expensive, it was very hard to scale, and it wasn't their actual customers, and so they weren't getting the kind of the granular, real customer experience that they were wanting. So what we set out in the beginning, we said, as a performance objective for ourselves, we want at least 5,000 customers to be a part of whatever we do. And we want those 5,000 customers to each share at least, one observation with us, and we want it to cover at least 70% of our major airports. So they have their entire network, but they have a smaller group of airports that are, of course, the most important to them. And that would overcome what they had faced, the sort of the shortcomings that they had faced with the mystery shopping. Second, if we're involving these super high-value customers, these people who mean so much to these airlines, well, we need the research experience to, of course, reflect that priority experience. We need it to feel just like the rest of the service, just like the rest of the product. It may only be a small portion of their customers, but we certainly didn't want to hurt the brand by getting their customers to participate in this research. And so we set as a parameter for ourselves, if we can improve their feeling of being valued, even just 1%, essentially, if I'm honest, we would have been happy if it came out at 0. What we wanted to make sure of was that by participating in the research, because doing that is in fact work, by doing that work for us, we weren't hurting the priority experience. So we needed the research to really look like the rest of the service. And then finally, I mentioned that complex business environment. Well, what we got was, in the beginning, they said, you get a 6-month pilot project, let's try this out, but at the end of those 6 months, you have to get the VPs of 20 different airlines to all sign up and say go or no go if you're going to roll this out structurally. So we knew we had kind of a limited time to really achieve this goal and to demonstrate that we could do this. So then we thought, what do we really want to do? If we're being really creative, like, what do we wish we could be? And we said, what we would love to be is just the fly on the wall, so that anytime someone is actually there experiencing this service, experiencing Sky Priority, we just want to be there with them. And so with that as our thinking, we moved into a project. So what we did was we developed a mobile app that used geofencing technology so that we could follow people throughout their experience. And the reason we did this is because we realized in most customer satisfaction research that experience of participating in the research is entirely isolated from the experience of the product itself or the service itself. And we said, we want to bring those two together. Like, a lot of you, I'm sure, flew here to get to this conference. And it's entirely likely that in the coming days or even weeks, you'll receive a survey, you'll get an email from that airline you flew with asking you how your journey was. That's standard customer research, but you can see there how isolated that research is from the actual experience that you had while you were there in the airport or in the airplane, etc. So using this new mobile app and using this geofencing technology, we could really be there with them. So rather than those things being isolated, the research experience is there with the experience of the product itself. So if you imagine flying from New York to Seoul via Amsterdam, we know where you are at every step of that journey, and we can ask you exactly the right things in the right context to know what your experience was like. And we can scale that across the 1,000+ airports all around the world and across all 20 airlines. Now, second, we had that prioritized experience that we wanted to give them. We knew the app had to kind of look and feel the way Sky Priority looked and felt. And so we tried very hard to make sure it was a good user experience. And we also recognized that because these are high-value customers, these are business and first-class travelers, platinum card holders, these sorts of people, they will not spend 20 minutes filling out a survey for us. So we knew we had to be really, really short and snappy. And we forced ourselves, as a social researcher, I can always find more data that I want. There's always another question that if I could, I would ask. But we had to really challenge ourselves and ask only the most crucial questions. And in this case, it was really all about implementation. So if we're going to find out about how seamless and consistent this experience is, then we had to ask just the very specific pointed questions about how that product was implemented and what their experience was like. But then what we also recognized was they want to give us more than perhaps what we're asking. And maybe we're not even asking the right questions. So what we also built into the app was the ability for people to share their stories with us upload their photos, and really give us a broader, more kind of qualitative view of their experience beyond those quantitative survey questions we were asking. So it created this more prioritized experience, or this more prioritized feeling, because we weren't just asking them, we were sitting back and listening to what they wanted to say. And then finally, it's all well and good to gather lots of insights, gather them in this cool, clever way with this new mobile app, but it does you no good if it's not getting to the right people. So we had an online data dashboard, we had a storyboard, and sort of a picture gallery that is all combined together into one website, and all 20 Sky Priority managers, so across all 20 airlines, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they could go in there and look. They could see all their data results in real time. They could see all the photos people had uploaded, the stories they were telling, the comments they were giving. And this could then be distributed throughout the organization. And beyond that, we also added this extra, I think it's kind of one of the cooler features of the whole program. We created this automatic email. So if somebody, a traveler, is participating and they report essentially non-compliance, they say, no, I didn't get the priority boarding call. It was a zoo. And no, I didn't have the Sky Priority stamp on my ticket, so they refused me at the line, whatever. This generates an automatic email that's sent immediately to the relevant manager so that they know about it. And we flagged this situation. And we've got the time, we have the airline, we have the airport, we have often the flight number, and so with all that data, it makes it very operationally relevant so that we can ideally go and address that situation and fix it. So we don't just gather the insights, we really built the program from the ground up to have an impact. Now, of course, we're researchers, and researchers love to research. And we did some research on ourselves because we wanted to see kind of how our program was doing. We always had, data coming into us. We get the kind of behavioral stats from the app itself, and we get the behavioral stats from all our Sky Priority managers who are using the dashboard. But we also wanted to go out and kind of find out what people's experience was like participating in the program, and even from our managers, find out what they thought about it. So we ran an ad hoc study, just a quick online survey with our managers, and then also with participants in our program. But what was really cool there was that we had the opportunity to really set up an experimental design. So we had about 200 people who were a part of the program, who had participated, downloaded the app, had submitted observations to us. But we had another 200 people who were Sky Priority participants. They're Sky Priority customers, but they had not been a part of our program. And we wanted to do that so we could compare the two to see, A, are these guys representative? And B, how have we impacted them in the course of our participating in our research panel? So you remember early on we set these kind of basic performance goals for ourselves so we could know that we were reaching beyond kind of the traditional mystery shopping. We said those 5,000 customers with one observation each, 70% of our major airlines. Well, after our 6 months, we totally smashed all of those goals. So we knew kind of in an operational sense that we were doing really well. We were achieving what we wanted to achieve there. But what you might be asking, and this was a big question that we asked ourselves, is that data any good? If you just kind of recruit a bunch of people like this that are in some way maybe brand fans, or the people who are volunteering to give this data, because, and that's probably an important thing to note, we're not paying any incentives. We're not giving anyone anything. The people are only sharing this data out of the kindness of their hearts. And it's still, when I first was running this program, that would keep me up at nights. I would think my God, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and everyone's going to realize this is work, giving this guy all this data. Why the hell am I going to keep doing this? But they keep doing it every single day. And so we wanted to know, okay, we've got all these engaged people, they're participating, they're giving us all this amazing data, but how relevant is it? Are they actually representative of the Sky Priority customers as a whole. And so that's where that little piece of ad hoc research really came in handy for us. Because, and this is maybe the first time in my research career where I was really thrilled to see there were no significant differences. We could look at just our plain Sky Priority customers, and they looked just the same as our panelists. In terms of demographics, in terms of NPS for SkyTeam as a brand, or even Sky Priority as a service, they really just looked largely the same. And that really made us feel like, okay, we're really onto something here, because that means we can trust the insights we're getting from these people. We can trust the data we're getting out. But they did differ in a few small but very fundamental ways. So you'll remember we set as a goal for ourselves even a 1% improvement in that kind of valued feeling valued as a customer by participating in our panel, because we just didn't want to hurt the experience by rolling out this research program. But what we found was, in fact, we improved that feeling of being valued as a customer. There was 9% more with people who had participated in our panel than with the average Sky Priority customer. So there we knew we were definitely meeting our goal. We were not hurting Sky Priority by kind of asking people to do this work for us. And finally, we also found that on measures of customer centricity, then our panelists had higher scores than your average customer. So when we asked things like, SkyTeam listens to their customers, or SkyTeam wants to collaborate with their customers, that's where we really saw improvements in the people who participated in the panel versus just your average customer. And I think that really makes sense, because what we were doing is sort of signaling, just by doing this research, we were signaling like, we care what you guys think, we care what you have to say. And of course, it's really gratifying seeing all the comments come in. We get sometimes some really crazy, some really funny stuff. We see people taking selfies in, the new lounge in Beijing, or pictures of the pizza party that Delta threw for them when their flight got canceled and they were all, stuck in the airport for a few hours. But the comments that really stick with me are the ones where people recognize that by participating in this research, they're not just helping themselves, and it's not just a service to them, but it's really a service to all Sky Priority passengers, and even to passengers more widely. And what we also found was at the end of those 6 months, when we did this measurement, we got great feedback from all our Sky Priority managers. They were loving it. They were using the data every day. And we also got that unanimous buy-in from all 20 VPs. And that's really, I think, a testament to how successful the program was, because it's not every day that you can get 20 airline VPs in a room together to agree on something. And promise me, I've spent the last 2 years watching these meetings. It is not an easy thing to do. So with our Sky Priority managers, what we really found was that they better understood their customers. They could better envision both their airline strategy and the strategy of the alliance, and that they were getting relevant and insightful data that was actually changing the way they did their jobs. So we really felt like not only were we getting great insights from our customers, but those things were actually making a difference with these managers, with our stakeholders and our clients. Since then, we've had to keep moving, and we're always releasing new versions of the app. I think we heard earlier today, I don't recall who it was now, but they were talking about, it was DHL in DHL's presentation about the gamification and kind of that more engaging survey experience. That's something we're working very hard on, and something that by doing this in a native mobile app, we have a lot of advantages for ways we can kind of gamify it. So now we have the ability for participants to say, become the captain of Amsterdam Schiphol Airport because they've submitted the most observations in that airport. Or, we had some of our biggest participants recently. We took a group of people who had submitted several great observations for us via the app. We had a little lottery, and one of them got to fly out to Bangkok, stay there for a few days, and appear in a new SkyTeam commercial that will be airing sometime next year. And it was a great experience. I mean, the guy just played a cameo in the back. We didn't ask him to become an actor for us. But we're always just looking for new ways to keep up the intensity of the program and to give people an incentive. Like I said, they're not getting paid, so we have to give them an incentive to keep giving us this valuable data. So we're never standing still. We're always looking for ways to improve the app itself. We're looking for ways to improve our communication. We send out newsletters via the app, but we're also realizing that these guys, they can recognize when they're being communicated to in a kind of generic way versus a very personalized way. So now we're working on methods to personalize every interaction we have with them on the app. And then the biggest hill to climb for the program, I can't overstate this, is making a difference on the ground. So it's all about taking those research findings and, applying fixes where fixes are needed. So if somebody is reporting that, there's an issue in some airport at some gate or with some airline, we need to make sure that the people who can actually go and fix this find that out and actually fix it. I can't say we've entirely accomplished that. It's a huge hill to climb when you've got 20 airlines, and those airlines are dealing with all these different airports, and those airports have third-party operators working in those airports, so the people who are actually delivering the service are kind of 3 tiers removed from the people that are giving the feedback, from the people like me, in fact. Just last week, we were in Hanoi because we were bringing all those airlines together to work on exactly these sorts of issues. So if I have any key takeaways that I've learned in the course of running this program for the last couple years, it is that context adds relevance. We have all sorts of mobile tech that enables this. We should be taking more advantage of it in the market research world. Second is that if you're doing that, as we heard earlier from DHL, you need to make it engaging, you need to make it fun, and you also need to be very respectful of people's time, because I think, at least on my side, on the research provider's side, the dirty secret we all know is that participation rates are plummeting, and they get worse every single day. Getting people to participate in research is just getting harder and harder. So we need to do whatever we can. We need to gamify it. We need to keep it short and snappy and simple and kind of give people a reason to keep participating. And then finally, we need to take those insights. You need to build a program that takes those insights and makes sure that they have an impact. Because with us, we really built this program from the beginning with the idea that changes need to happen on the ground as a result of the insights. We don't want to just deliver this data. We want to deliver this data because there's an end to it. There's a real reason we're doing it. We don't do research for the sake of research. We do research for the sake of having an impact. And in this case, we were able to do research as a customer service itself. That's all I've got, guys. Happy to answer any questions.
It's really interesting, Farrell. We've got, again, lots of questions. I'm going to combine the most popular one with another one, which kind of links. There's been a bunch of questions around how do you get respondents to download the app and keep them continually engaged. And I know you addressed some of them, but particularly at the outset, how do you get them to download the app? How many people do you have to try and engage with in order to get the sample size you're looking at? And then another question, which is picking up on one of your ways of measuring ROI, is a somewhat philosophical question. Are we changing the definition of market research or typical objectives when attitudinal change within the constraints of the research is actually an implicit goal? So they're kind of linked, because one of them, of course, looks at the specific sample. But let's start with, how did you manage to recruit such an engaged group?
Recruitment is something we're still wrestling with. When we started out, when we rolled out the program, we really did recruitment in the kind of the traditional way. It was email campaigns to, customer databases. But we've learned that, of course, there are several bottlenecks on that journey, and at each stage of that, you lose huge numbers of participants. So what we're about to do is we're rolling out a 2.0 version of the app here in the next 2 months. And with that, you will be able to sign up and sort of submit your first observation right there in the app. The idea being that if someone walks into an airport lounge and sees a flyer or a sign, that they can go from never having heard of our project to participating for the first time in less than 5 minutes. It's always going to be a challenge getting participation, but we're working on all sorts of creative ideas on how to overcome that.
Okay. And the second part was around whether we're changing the definition of market research when behavioral change or attitudinal change is an implicit goal. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we are. Honestly, I think we just have to be honest with ourselves about where the industry is going and where consumers and participants are going. They don't frigging care whether we want them to change in a given way or not. We need to, I think, kind of bake it into our research and accept that we will be making those impacts. And so if we accept that we are going to be making those impacts, we need to measure them, and we need to sort of make them objectives themselves.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thanks.